So what is a game's core loop? Now, this is one thing when you're transitioning into games UX, you will hear these terms: core loop, meta loop, social loop. This is how a game is fundamentally structured or designed. So every game, irrespective of whether it's on mobile, PC, or console, irrespective of the platform, it will have a core loop. And if the game's core loop doesn't work well, is not sticky enough, is not engaging or rewarding enough, that game will not be successful. So you are going to hear this term a lot, and that's why I'm getting into it. So the core loop is a set of actions that the player will be doing repeatedly for the entirety of your game. Even if there are different modes, different ways of playing, there's always something that a player will repeatedly do in the game if they want to progress. Now, I'm sure a lot of you must have guessed by now that, okay, is core loop a habit loop, or is it like a Skinner box? It is inspired from it, but it is more refined, more elevated. And I'll show you examples of what a game's core loop will look like. So we are going to look at some different examples. Now, here is an example of core loop of Candy Crush Saga. Candy Crush Saga, many of you might know, is one of the world's most popular mobile game. It's a very casual game. Almost anybody can pick it up and play. Anybody who knows how to use a mobile smartphone can easily play. It's that easy to play. So here's an example of the core loop of Candy Crush Saga. Okay, so basically what you do in the game is there is a board on which there are these different color candies, and your job is to align those candies together, either horizontally or vertically. So if you get 3 candies, aligned in a row or in a column, you manage to remove those candies from the board, and your objective is just remove all the candies, and then you will get reward in form of stars. Using those stars, you will progress to the next level. You also are gated by some lives. Lives are like tickets. So let's say you get 5 tickets a day. So using those tickets, every time you play the game session, you lose 1 ticket. The reason we do is that we don't want players to just spend all their time playing games, right? They should do other things as well. So if you very closely look at this core loop, you can see there are 3 elements. Queue. The queue is the board with different colored candies. Action. The action is that I have to align the candies either vertically or horizontally. And then my reward are these stars, these stars which make me progress to the next level. Now, one thing I do want to, bring up is you might say, hey, Om, in case of the mice, it's in the physical world, real world, he's getting something tangible, like, food, which is physical. Now, would virtual reward work as well? Right? That's a fair question, because what are these stars? These are virtual rewards. They're not real. But think about it. Virtual rewards also work very well. They also create the same dopamine surge in your brain that an actual food might do, because people care about things like prestige, things like vanity, things like self-esteem, and there are no physical counterparts for it. So virtual rewards are as successful in triggering dopamine reaction, feel-good factor as physical rewards are, and this has been proven by research. So that's the reason why, even if you get virtual rewards, you feel that you've earned them, you would still get the very same high. Alright, so we looked at the core loop of Candy Crush Saga. Let me now show you the core loop of another very popular mobile game called Pokémon Go. It's an AR game, you can walk in the real world and meet other players. Now, if you look at this, you would see the core loop has become a bit more complex, right? We looked at Candy Crush. It had a very simple core loop. But as we look at Pokémon Go, it's a slightly more complex game. In fact, we call it a mid-core game. You can see that there are more actions player has to perform as they go along the core loop. For example, they have to capture a Pokemon, they have to collect them, put them in an inventory in their game, they can level them up, upgrade them, make your Pokemon powerful, and then you can explore the world and you encounter other players, and then you can actually pit your Pokemon against the other person's Pokemon. Whoever wins gets more rewards. So you can see that how the core loop is also becoming more complex based on how the game and the gameplay is becoming more complex. But you should also observe one more thing. Even though there are more actions to do in this core loop, there are also more rewards the player is getting. So it's not just that the number of actions the player has to perform is going up. The number of rewards, the items they're getting is also going up. And again, quickly, I'll show you another core loop. I'm not going to go too much in detail into it, but idea is to show you that, yeah, core loops vary a lot between, depending on the complexity of games, which we'll talk about down in the presentation. So this is an example from Heyday. It's another very popular farming game on mobile, and it's very similar to Farmville. You might have heard of Farmville on Facebook. It was one of the biggest games back in the days. And you can see that how the core loop of Heyday is even more complex. There are a lot of tasks to perform, there's time pressure, there are different rewards, currencies, and so on. So this is what encapsulates the core loop of a game, which can differ across different games based on the complexity, based on the genre they belong to. And like I said, it's very important to understand the core loop of a game, because if a game has to be successful, this core loop has to work. And one piece of advice I'll give you, whatever game you're playing right now or you're checking out, as a UX designer, researcher, you should now start looking at it from this lens. What is the core loop action? What is the core loop of this game? Because it will be very beneficial for you to identify what is the player journey along this core loop.